seriously, I've really studied a lot of history. Plus, I had family that was there. And so, I mean, I don't think Hitler was a good guy. I get the Hugo Boss uniforms, amazing. But I mean, just because you're in love with the design, you're a designer. Can we just kind of say like you like the uniforms, but that's about
No,
it?
no. There's a lot of things that I love about Hitler. A lot of things. Hey, Nedden, what did you think about?
Doesn't get much more on the nose than that. Now, if you haven't heard about this is Kanye West coming out and saying that he loves Hitler, that he is an open, avowed Nazi. His words, not mine. But I was wondering what other views the guy has, because just about all he ever talks about is Jews. That's it. That's all he ever mentions. What other things does he believe in? How does he feel about other stuff? So I decided to go to some of the other players in the market that Kanye has found himself in. As you can see, he went on Alex Jones to talk about how much he loves Hitler, and he brought his boy Nick Fuentes with him. Now, Nick Fuentes is also an avowed, open Nazi and white supremacist. He believes that black people are genetically inferior to white people. Kind of interesting that he's hanging out with Kanye, but okay, you do you, I suppose. Here's somebody else in the Kanye/Nick Fuentes market, a fella named Vincent James.
And we are the Christian Taliban, and we will not stop until The Handmaid's Tale is a reality. And even worse than that, to be honest.
He was a founding member of the America First Party, political party, or political action committee or whatever, which is co-run or whatever by Nick Fuentes. I think Nick Fuentes actually started AFPAC, but Vincent James has been involved in it for a long time. He's spoken at their events and all that. And he's friends with Nick Fuentes. So he's a good gauge to figure out what else Kanye believes. Because Kanye pretty much believes exactly what all of these other people believe. All of these other white supremacists and neo-Nazis. Oh, and also he apparently has the exact same microphone as me. That's weird. Okay, so let's listen to just one example of what Vincent James, avowed white supremacist and Nazi, believes. This is from late June 2022. By the by, before we actually do listen to this, this came out immediately after Roe v. Wade was erased by the Supreme Court.
We are the Christian Taliban. This is the era of Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism is on the rise, and people are thirsty for it. They are hungry for this.
Christian nationalism. He thinks people want Christian nationalism. Well, some certainly do. But trust me, believe me when I say this, if you're a Christian, you don't want to live in the world that he has in mind. It's not just a Christian nationalist state that he wants, because he's not just a Christian nationalist. He's also a white nationalist, a white supremacist, and a Nazi. You most definitely don't want that. You don't want what he has in mind, unless you are also all of those things, in which case, why are you even watching my channel?
Yes. And we are the Christian Taliban, and we will not stop until The Handmaid's Tale is a reality. And even worse than that, to be honest. Yes, we do have to start rolling back there was this article from The Atlantic where it's like, well, Alito is on a mission to roll back the rights of women, to roll back the past 100 years of rights that were given to women. Yes, that is what we're doing.
It is, yeah. I don't see how anybody could possibly see it any differently. It's most definitely what, the far right is trying to do. And Alito is definitely on the far right. Alito, by the by, is a Supreme Court justice who has a vested interest in destroying all of our most sacred rights. Privacy rights, right to bodily autonomy through abortion, women's rights, all kinds of stuff. They even quoted a judge that was famous for upholding burning people at the stake or some crazy thing like that. His buddy Clarence Thomas, another Supreme Court justice, even said he wants to revisit gay marriage and, he said he wanted to revisit the Supreme Court decision that established gay marriage. Interestingly enough, that also established interracial marriage. The reason that's funny is because Clarence Thomas is in an interracial marriage, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that these people most definitely do want to do all this stuff. Believe them when they come out and tell you what their plans are. You know, Kanye comes out and says, I am a Nazi, I love Hitler. Believe him. Believe him. That's what he's saying. We should be believing him if that's what he's saying. They say that Vincent James, one of the founders of AFPAC, you know, this conference that had Marjorie Taylor Greene speak at it, this guy is saying we want to roll back women's rights. We want to erase voting rights for women. Believe them when they say it. Believe them.
And it's only going to get worse for you from here.
So that was from June. That was from right after Roe v. Wade was erased by the Supreme Court. But he's had some more recent things to say since this movement got air, because Nick Fuentes and Kanye went to speak with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, at Trump's resort or whatever. This movement's got oxygen now. That's why we're talking about it, because it has oxygen. So let's see what other things they have in mind. Late November 2022. Listen to what else Vincent James has had to say.
It all started with, allowing women to wear pants, and not wearing long skirts. And you can see the change in the way that they dress. A lot of that started with the women's liberation movement. And so a lot of people say,
yeah, okay. So he says you can see the change in the way they dress. Yeah, of course you can see the way that their dress changes throughout the years. Is that a bad thing? Why does he want to force women to wear dresses? I don't understand. Why aren't women allowed to wear pants? These people are not for freedom. They're not for freedom of speech. They're not for freedom of bodily autonomy. They're not for freedom, period. They are for control. Authoritarian, fascistic, top-down, hierarchical control. You know, I talked about this in another video recently. There's this thing called the F scale. It's a personality test created after World War II by a guy named Theodore Adorno. It was a test to determine if somebody is likely to fall for what Hitler wanted. These are the personality qualities that Nazis were likely to have. Conventionalism, a conformity to the traditional societal norms and values of the middle class. Authoritarian submission, a passive notion toward adhering to conventional norms and values. Superstition, strict adherence to religion and ethics. Exaggerated concern with sexual goings-on. You know, being obsessed with how women dress, for example. Being obsessed with the LGBT community and what they're up to. Being obsessed with power and toughness, you know, alpha male, that type of thing. These are the personality flaws that the Nazis or Nazi followers had. Does any of this sound familiar to anybody? Pushing and condemning individuals who don't adhere to conventional values. Sound familiar?
Hey, it's second wave feminism, that's the issue. It's third wave feminism, that's the issue. No, it's not. It's all feminism from the very beginning of the suffragettes all the way up until now. It's all of that. This is all the root cause of those things that I mentioned. A lot of people don't like to hear it, but it's completely the truth. And men know it. Men know it. Even if they don't want to admit it or not. All right. So let's...
Men know that all the source of the world's problems are women get to vote. That's the source of the problems? Hell, I guess I'm just not a man then. Weird. I thought I was. This guy's telling me I'm not.
So let's, that's why we have to go back. That's why we have to go back 100 years. That's why we have to go back. That's why we do, in fact, have to start taking away rights.
Jesus Christ, dude. What does this donation say? He got a donation, some anonymous donation during his stream. What you just said was anti-Semitic. I am reporting you to cozy.tv and the ADL. We know this because FOIA requests have uncovered that Gloria Steinem was a CIA asset and she's a Jew. Okay, obviously very tongue-in-cheek there. He is, very anti-Semitic, naturally. This guy has always been anti-Semitic. He is part of Kanye's belief system. They are effectively one and the same. You know, a few minutes ago, I talked about the fact that these people don't believe in free speech. Never have, never will. It's never been about free speech. It's never been about people's rights. Never been about freedom, period. They don't want people to have freedom. They want to control people. Always have since day one. Here's Richard Spencer, famed Nazi. I believe he's been canceled now. Talking about free speech, as a matter of fact. Listen to what he had to say about this. I mean, this is the founder of the alt-right movement, of the neo-Nazi movement in America, or one of the founding members, or one of the more famous people who pushed it forward. I think this is from 2018, late May 2018.
But yeah, I would put our lot with the government as opposed to Silicon Valley. And, as many of these senators pointed out, Facebook has, the equivalent of China is using their service on a daily basis. And a few multiples of that will use it on a monthly basis. I guess I might use it on a monthly basis. I simply don't use Facebook. And if I log in once a month, that's a lot.
But as far as government regulation, I mean, yes, I think in the short term we would favor government regulation of speech, but long term, are we even pro free speech?
No, of course not. But we have to use this platform in order.
So we're being radically honest here. And,
yes,
yeah.
radically pragmatic. Yes. Yeah.
One interesting angle on this was that is a news article. Facebook bans German historian for saying Islam is not part of Germany.
They were never in favor of rights. They never were, and they never will be in favor of rights. When I say they, I'm talking about Kanye West, Vincent James, anybody from the America First movement like Nick Fuentes, or even Richard Spencer, like the guy that we just talked to. They're not in favor of free speech. They're not in favor of bodily autonomy. They're not in favor of privacy rights. They're not in favor of anything. They don't want anybody to have these rights. They want a full-blown dictatorship. And if you don't believe me on that, stick around. I'll prove it. Before we continue, I just wanted to mention something. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, you can support me in a few ways. First, there's Patreon. That's probably the best way. But if you want to get something back for your support, you can check out my Teespring. Or you can check out my Telltale Unfiltered channel. I go through long-form, unhinged sermons from all kinds of people, from Hank Kunneman to Greg Locke to Jehovah's Witnesses. So give it a look. Links are in the description. Okay, now back to the video. Listen to this one, late November 2022. Here's another example of Vincent James laying out the foundation of Kanye West's belief system, ultimately. Of his, Nick Fuentes, Richard Spencer, and Kanye West's belief system.
We have, in fact, infiltrated the mainstream flank of the GOP. Just look at what Tucker Carlson is talking about lately. These things just sort of happen on their own. Now, of course, if we had a platform, if we were able to speak freely, if we were allowed on YouTube still and allowed on these platforms still, then these things would have happened a lot quicker. But you can see which way the wind is blowing. The way that Tucker Carlson is talking right now is because the wind is blowing that direction. The way that Charlie Kirk is talking on Twitter, the way that Matt Walsh is talking on Twitter is because they see which way the wind is blowing. Now, whether they're authentic or not in their views, I would argue that some of them certainly aren't, and they just see which way the wind is blowing. There are some that are, and this is what Tucker Carlson is talking about the 1965 Hart-Celler Immigration and Nationality Act, and talking about what Ted Kennedy promised during this act, and saying that it completely transformed the nation, and talking about demographic change. Like, this is something, these are things that you never thought you would see on Fox News. You have people taking over school boards, and you have, 1/3 of the people that got elected into House of Representatives were all like they denied the results of the 2020 election. People taking over school boards and talking about the degeneracy that is being pushed in schools. We have parts of the nation talking about secession, talking about banning gay marriage and banning contraceptives, and we have, in fact, our beliefs have, in fact, infiltrated the mainstream flank of GOP politics because people are beginning to see that our views, our worldview, our beliefs are the inevitable conclusion, or need to be, rather, the inevitable conclusion.
When he says that, he means anti-Semitism and white supremacy. That's what he is. He is a neo-Nazi white supremacist. Basically, he's like a Nazi. I think he even claims that position for himself. Like I said, Kanye did. Nick Fuentes claims that. I mean, they're not usually that on the nose and open about it because they realize that they will be canceled to complete if they come out and say that they're neo-Nazis like that. Usually, that's kind of what happened with Richard Spencer. So they beat around the bush, they dog whistle, and they refer to, the cabal or the elites or the deep state rather than calling it who they believe it is, the Jews. Kanye just came out and said it's the Jews. But that's who he's talking about. That is exactly the situation that we find ourselves in now. He believes that the mainstream of Republican politics have adopted these anti-Semitic talking points, these anti-Jewish neo-Nazi talking points. Now, I feel like he's probably kind of trying to fluff his audience a little bit. I don't think that it's as bad as he's making it out to be. After Kanye came out and said all that stuff, he was heavily denounced by a lot of people, like on the right, not just on the left. Vincent James is correct in the fact that many people on the right have either stayed completely silent or, come out in favor of what Kanye was saying. But another good portion of them have come out against it. There seems to be like some kind of an internal war in the Republican Party right now over anti-Semitism. But you know what? I cannot give people a pass if they stay quiet on this. I'm sorry, I simply cannot. I'm talking like right-wingers who just don't want to get involved in this, like right-wing political people like Steven Crowder or Tim Pool or whoever else. Now, those two people that I just named specifically, they have spoken up about this. They have given their opinion on it. And they kind of came out against Kanye for the most part a little bit or whatever. So I'm not referring to them specifically here. But if you're a political commentator and you don't come out and explicitly denounce Kanye, you're an accomplice. This is the Nobel Peace Prize speech given by a guy named Elie Wiesel, I believe is his name. He is a Holocaust survivor. He was at Auschwitz, and he survived at the work camp. Lost his father there, but he survived. And he gave a speech after accepting a Nobel Peace Prize. And in the speech, he says, and I quote, "I have tried to keep memory alive. I tried to fight those who would forget, because if we forget, we are guilty. We are accomplices." Like, if you're a shoe salesman at like Adidas, if you work at like an Adidas store or something, I don't expect you to go around to every customer and scream in their face, "I don't like Kanye anymore because he's a Nazi." But if this is your field, if this is the type of thing you do for work, if you're a political commentator and you're on the right and you don't come out and openly denounce Nazism and what Kanye had to say, if you are silent, you're complicit and you're an accomplice. This guy is beyond an accomplice. He's a perpetrator. He fully agrees with what happened during World War II on the German side. So, yeah, that doesn't even really fully apply to him because he's just got absolutely monstrous views. Now, earlier I said I was going to prove to you that they want a dictatorship, remember? That's a pretty tall claim, it seems to me. Listen to what he has to say here, mid-November 2022.
As far as forcing people to believe what we believe, yes, I completely agree. When Nick says in that clip that was posted by
Nick Fuentes, who he's referring to, Kanye West's friend,
Wing Watch, that we need basically a dictatorship, yes, I agree. Yes, ban the gay flag in schools. Yes, ban teaching of gender ideology or gender identity or gender expression in schools.
Who is teaching any of this stuff in schools anyways?
Yes, ban the Gay Straight Alliance and other groups just like them from operating in schools. Yes, ban LGBTQ plus profile groups from operating in schools.
Okay, no, most definitely ban pro groups, but those aren't even in schools anyways. Those are probably banned anyways. Being LGBT does not make you a groomer, despite their best efforts to conflate the two things. It's just more bigotry and more hatred and more propaganda intended to destroy a group of people for no goddamn fucking reason other than you hate them. That's it.
Completely do away with the entire curriculum that is in place within red state schools and create a brand new curriculum. Create a curriculum that is pro-God. What they say about the separation of church and state, you shouldn't give a shit about that because that's something that they got control of back in the 1960s. There were 2 Supreme Court rulings on that. By the way, both of them were Jewish Americans who brought these cases to the Supreme Court. That was something that was done back then. What they say, their rules. They say your rules. How about we start to say no, your rules?
Well, the problem is that the Constitution very specifically outlines what you are allowed to do, and this guy is saying he wants to do away with the Constitution. The system of governance that we have set up right now is one of democracy, where people vote for the leader. He doesn't want that. He wants to scrap it. He wants to erase what we've got going on right now and install a dictator and ban free speech, ban, in the form of like banning LGBT flags, ban people's free choices of bodily autonomy, ban this, ban that, and while you're at it, blame the Jews for all of your problems. Did you catch that one thing right in the middle there where he said Jews were to blame for separation of church and state going through in the 60s or whatever other thing? Blame everybody else for your own problems. That is the Nazi way, which is exactly what he is. So that should give you a pretty clear idea of Kanye West and what he believes, his other beliefs tangential to his hatred of Jews. And trust me when I say you don't want to live in the world that Kanye West has in mind for all of us. He wants blasphemy laws of all things. I don't have a clip of that, but that's something that he talked about in his interview with Alex Jones, or Ali Alexander, his friend Ali Alexander, talked about blasphemy laws. He wants to send women back 100 years. He wants a full-blown dictatorship. That is what Kanye West wants. That is who the guy is. And I, to the bottom of my heart, really do hope that Kanye has completely destroyed his reputation permanently. I hope he has no way of regaining a position of stature, because the guy currently seems obsessed with becoming president before the day he dies. I hope I never live to see that time, because it will very likely be another World War II situation if that happens. After hearing Kanye openly praise Hitler like that,
I love about Hitler a lot of things. Hey, Ned.
And hearing his friends and political allies talk about all the things that he said, I cannot imagine it would be pretty if this dude ever got into office. So let's make sure we never let that happen by getting out there and voting. Crawl over broken glass to vote if that's what it takes, because that is the only thing standing between us and another authoritarian dictatorship. No joke. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Scott Weber, Owen, look up the original America First movement in 1941. Charles Lindbergh was the leader, and he praised Hitler. I didn't realize Charles Lindbergh was the leader, but you're absolutely right. The original America First movement, let me explain how that worked. The original America First movement was started in 1941, or was at the height of its prominence, at least, in 1941. And the goal behind the movement was to give support to the Nazis during World War II, basically. And the way that they did that, they knew that was going to be a little too on the nose. They knew it was going to be hard to garner support from the general public for such a polarizing, grotesque, evil figure as Hitler. So instead of coming out and saying, hey, Hitler's fantastic, why doesn't everybody love Hitler like us? If you love Hitler, join this party. Instead of saying that, they said, we should be isolationist. We shouldn't get involved. This is how a dog whistle works. Another example of a dog whistle. If you don't want to be involved in World War II, if you think we should mind our own business, join AFPAC. Join the America First movement. That was the original America First movement in 1941. The founder, as Scott Weber, my super chatter, says, praised Hitler, just like the leaders of the AFPAC movement today, America First today. Kanye, Nick Fuentes, Vincent James, and others. They are neo-Nazis. Oh, I'm sorry. And you know who else? Marjorie Taylor Greene. She spoke at an AFPAC event, America First. Just blows me away, man. Just blows me away that anybody doesn't see straight through this, doesn't see it for exactly what it is. Emily Sigmund, as common as sexism is today, most men don't think women shouldn't be able to vote. Most men are totally fine with women wearing pants. Vincent is completely deluded if he thinks most men think like him. Oh, yeah, I agree. Most men are fully aware that women should be allowed to vote, but a lot of people believe that everybody is a hero of their own story. Everybody. Even the most disgusting, evil person alive. Hitler believed that he was the hero of his own story. He thought that he was doing the right thing. He blamed Jews for every one of society's ills and believed that if he got rid of them, the world would be better. He would be cleaning it up. He'd be fixing it. Things would be a better place to live if they were gone. That's what he believed. Everybody's a hero of their own stories. Vincent James believes that his viewpoints are objectively, provably correct. That there's a cabal of Jews that run the world. They control the banks, the media, the everything. And if we can just prevent them and women and, African Americans and everybody else from voting, just white land-owning men, things will be a lot better. He thinks the downfall of society started when women earned the right to vote. And, well, basically he thinks it was when anybody was allowed to vote that wasn't a white land-owning male. That's pretty much his viewpoint. And he's convinced that he has facts to back him up on that. It's just bizarre.